The way we eat has changed more in the last 50 years than in the previous 10,000. The modern supermarket has on average 47,000 products.
The industry doesn't want you to know the truth about what you're eating, because if you knew, you might not want to eat it. We've never had food companies this powerful in our history.
Everything we've done in modern agriculture is to grow it faster, fatter, bigger, cheaper.
If you could grow a chicken in 49 days, why would you want one you got to grow in 3 months?
When you go through the supermarket, there is an illusion of diversity. So much of our industrial food turns out to be rearrangements of corn.
Sometimes you look at a vegetable and say, okay, well, we can get 2 hamburgers for the same price.
They have managed to make it against the law to criticize their products.
There is an effort to make it illegal to publish a photo of any industrial food operation.
I find it incredible that the FDA wants to allow the sale of meat from cloned animals without any labeling.
Peanut butter contaminated with salmonella.
E. coli has been found in spinach, apple juice.
Smells like money to me.
The average consumer does not feel very powerful. It's the exact opposite. When we run an item past the supermarket scanner, we're voting for local or not, organic or not.
Look at the tobacco industry. The battle against tobacco is a perfect model of how an industry's irresponsible behavior can be changed.
Imagine what it would be if, as a national policy, the idea would be to have such nutritionally dense food that people actually felt better, had more energy, and weren't sick as much. You know, now see, that's a noble goal.
People have got to start demanding good, wholesome food of us, and we'll deliver, I promise you.
What is a GMO? Scientists have discovered that by artificially manipulating the DNA of natural food, they can create a killer tomato. There are numerous intended purposes for modifying the genetics of food, one of which is to breed fruits and vegetables that produce their own internal insecticides. The concerns are obvious. If the food kills bugs, what does it do to us? Proposition 37 requires manufacturers of food containing GMOs to add a few extra words to their content label.
In Europe, where GMO foods require labeling,
the cost to consumer has increased less than 0.2%.
Cases of autism, bowel-related syndromes, and food allergies have skyrocketed.
Since GMOs were quietly introduced into our food system in the mid-1990s.
The U.S. military sprayed an herbicide known as Agent Orange over the jungles of Vietnam.
After its manufacturers declared it tested and safe.
It was later determined that numerous people, including American veterans, were killed or maimed.
And countless children were born with birth defects.
The same chemical company who manufactured Agent Orange
is currently leading the production of GMOs.
And spending millions of dollars to campaign against labeling.
It may be years before we know the long-term effects of genetically modified foods. Until then, we are simply asking for companies to label their packages and give us a choice to opt in or opt out of this science experiment. Already, over 50 countries have successfully implemented GMO labeling. The U.S. remains one of the only industrialized nations yet to get with it. While we may not have the financial backing of the corporations, what we do have is the power of the people. 93% of Democrats, 89% of Republicans, and 90% of everyone else is standing together for our right to know what's in our food.
If you feel you have the right to know what's in your food,
here's what to do.
Share this video.
Share these facts.
Vote yes on California Proposition 37.
Let's get with it.
All right, well, from the international stage to here in the U.S., here to discuss the issue of GMOs is Jeffrey Smith. Now, he's the author of the book, Seeds of Deception. Jeffrey, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Very
briefly, you know, some people say, well, these GMOs can help solve world starvation and yada, yada, yada. Why not allow these companies to push their seeds wherever they want?
First of all, the experts agree that GMOs have nothing to offer to feed the world, eradicate poverty, or establish sustainable agriculture. That was clear in a report done by over 400 scientists over several years, sponsored by several UN agencies. In fact, when GMOs were introduced in India 10 years ago, to much hype and celebration, Now the government finally admits that it's responsible for widespread suicides, an estimated 250,000 suicides among farmers, and most of which have been blamed on BT Cotton's failure to yield and allow farmers to even pay back their high-interest loans.
So why aren't we seeing this kind of outreach here in the U.S.? I mean, I just want to bring up a fact. I mean, in Europe, there's almost no GM crops, while here in the U.S., nearly 75% of our food products are GE tainted. Why aren't Americans as outraged?
Until recently, most Americans had no idea what GMOs were. However, we're now seeing more and more awareness and agitation. And this has resulted in a natural demand for labeling so people can reject GMOs, since most Americans say that if GMOs were labeled, they would reject it. Right now, 55 U.S. congressmen have sent a letter to the FDA demanding labeling. Recently, 1 million signatures were handed into the FDA, but we're not going to wait for the federal government. It's now happening at state levels. In Connecticut...
Why shouldn't we wait for the federal government?
Well, unfortunately, the Obama administration has been walking lockstep with Monsanto and basically has taken some pro-GM people from Monsanto and related organizations and put them into key positions like food safety czar, like USDA secretary, like USAID director. So basically, if we're dealing with the federal government, we're dealing with an arm of Monsanto.
It almost seems to me, and tell me if you think this is a far stretch, that you can describe Monsanto as a pseudo-drug pusher. I mean, if a company like McDonald's puts, say, crack in its burgers, hooking consumers on their food, and just to throw in some fun, sued anyone that went to Burger King for alternative food sources, we would be up in arms. It just surprises me that there isn't as much widespread outrage on the Hill, for example, over this issue.
When people learn about Monsanto and why it was consistently voted every year as the world's most evil company, they get outraged. However, Monsanto spends billions of dollars in disinformation. In fact, last week, one of its lawyers threatened to sue the state of Vermont if the Vermont legislature passed a labeling law that would require people to label genetically engineered foods.
And do you see this changing in any way? I mean, I know you said you sound a little bit optimistic. People are sort of catching on, but I mean, let's be realistic. Money talks, lobbyists talk. U.S. opinion doesn't necessarily change policy.
Well, there's been labeling bills proposed in over 20 states this year, which is unprecedented. But I see real possibility happening in California, where in 2 weeks from now, they're going to hand in 850,000 signatures to force the measure to go on the ballot, so it'll be voted directly by the citizens. And then we'll probably see Monsanto raining down a multi-million-dollar disinformation campaign trying to get people to vote against their best interests.
A new French study claimed rats fed GM corn produced by US firm Monsanto had suffered tumours and multiple organ damage. Opponents of genetically modified food demanded an urgent review of the EU's current policy. But other experts not involved in the research were highly sceptical of the French study's findings. Inside the EU Commission, Euronews asked officials what they might do. If this evidence is correct, isn't it now time to extend all GM studies beyond 3 months? US food giant Monsanto has so far not responded to the French study's claims, though it has repeatedly said in the past that its products are safe.
Can read at Infowars.com right now. New GMO study, rats fed lifetime of GM corn grow tumors. 70% of females die early. This in big new studies. Now, there's been a lot of other studies as well showing within 3 generations near total sterility, 99%, hair growing on the tongues of the rats, the guinea pigs. But this is a new big one.
Yeah, the photos are shocking, Alex, and the study found horrifying tumors growing at a 200 to 300% increased rate in these rats that were fed a lifetime of genetically modified corn. This is Monsanto's variety of GM corn that they fed these rats. You know, you've been covering today the bullets, the DHS bullets, 1.6 billion rounds of bullets. That's a huge story. The GMO story is related to that in the sense that food is now a weapon. Big findings, 70% of females suffered premature death, and up to 50% of males suffered premature death. Severe organ damage in those who ate this for a lifetime. We're talking liver damage, kidney damage, damage throughout the entire body system. Tumors so large, Alex, that I don't know if your producers can show some of the pictures on screen, they are horrifying It shows tumors so large that some of these rats had to drag the tumors across the floor as they were trying to crawl. And these scientists are getting paid to push this stuff onto people, and it's poisoning the people. There's no question.